guys, it's Leandra and welcome to another video. In this week's video, I am going to be bringing you guys a review that I have been very excited about, and I'm sure you guys have been very excited about this book as well, and that is Queen of Air and Darkness, which is the third book in the Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare. I actually finished this book about a month ago already, so I'm really sorry that this review has taken so long to get done and get uploaded. However, this was a huge book. And after the Christmas holidays, I was still kind of buzzing with like a Christmas sort of holiday mood, and I just didn't have the energy to really film my review for this video, and I wanted to actually spend some time doing it, so I'm going to be bringing it to you guys right now instead. I can't really say much about this book that won't either be very spoilery or will at least not really make much sense to the people who haven't read the first two books in the Dark Artifices series, but suffice to say that I really enjoyed Queen of Air and Darkness. I gave it 5 stars. I pretty much loved every single word that was in this book. I think there was only one thing that I didn't like so much, but it's more that I didn't like the concept of it and the sort of philosophical thought behind it, not that I didn't think that it was perfectly executed, as pretty much everything is with Cassie Clare's books, and I would definitely recommend for any one of you guys who hasn't read any of Cassie's books or who hasn't picked up the Dark Artifices series yet to definitely give Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness a go. So that is it for my non-spoiler part. I will be heading into spoilers right now. So this book starts off with a bang. Livy and Alec's father have just died. Everything is in chaos. The complete clave is in chaos. And I think one of the things that I just loved so much about this book was actually the political aspect of it. There's so much tension in this book. There are so many scenarios that almost play out one-to-one with things that we are very familiar with in our history books, or even with our current history that's happening right this year, right last year. I just found that to be one of the most interesting parts of this book. I know a lot of people just like action, or the action that takes place in the Shadowhunter Chronicles books, but I particularly love the political tension and just the general sort of mental revolution that was happening, if that makes sense. Not only does the book start off with a bang in terms of political struggles and power struggles and political imbalance, there is also that one scene that happens when Julian goes to Magnus and basically asks Magnus to take away his ability to love. And that is when I knew that things were gonna go downhill. We don't really know what the Parabatai curse does at this point in the book. We don't really know the repercussions, we don't know the consequences, but I sure as hell knew that taking away the emotions and ability to love of a young teenage boy whose love basically was the only thing keeping him afloat was not going to be a good idea. And we can definitely see these repercussions of Magnus putting that spell on Julian later on in the book, but at this point it was still fairly innocent. It was still something that you didn't really know how things were going to play out. I knew that it was a danger, but I just didn't know how crazy Julian was going to end up being. So yeah, that was just really intense. Speaking of young teenage boys making really bad decisions, this is also the book where you kind of see Ty just like sort of going off the deep end. He wants to use the Black Volume to bring Livy back from the dead. He will basically stop at nothing to get what he wants, and that is also something that has just really shocked me this book. Ty has been basically the most innocent character in the Dark Artifices series until now. I love Ty. I think Ty deserves the very best, and sadly has not always gotten the very best, but I am fucking terrified for him now, especially because we now know after this book that Livy's ghost has basically been tied to his body, or to him, which is also going to sort of lead into the Wicked Powers. Now, I don't actually know whether Ty or Kit or whatever are going to be the main characters of the Wicked Powers. I'm assuming that the Parabatai that is being spoken of for the Wicked Powers is going to be Ty and Kit, but now that Kit has actually gone off with Tessa and Jem to like be adopted by them, I honestly I don't even know how that is going to work out. So I'm really excited. You can just see so much darkness and evil permeating like the world in this book. You can see Ty going off the deep end, you can see Julian going off the deep end. Emma doesn't know how to handle like a situation. Livy's dead. Everyone is in mourning. It was just a really intense book. Speaking of crazy situations that happen in this book, this is also the book where we learn about Thule, I think that I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is basically the alternate reality in which Sebastian Morgenstern has basically won the Dark War and he's defeated Clary and he's basically created his evil empire. In that alternate reality, Livy is actually alive. Julian and Emma basically travel to Thule. They manage to get the Mortal Sword. They also manage to, meet Livy and actually talk to her again. And I think that for me personally, I wasn't a huge fan of Thule. I definitely think that it introduced a lot of interesting plot points in the series. I definitely think that it was executed very, very well. Cassie obviously knows how to create a scenario that just like moves you to tears. I was so emotionally caught up in the moment where they finally saw Livy again. But I think that there was also just a part of me, like a very, very small part of me, okay, it wasn't that small, it was a bit bigger than small, that was kind of like, oh my god, like this creates so many plot holes. If there are like infinite alternate realities out there, it kind of almost like, it kind of changes things, you know? I mean, obviously the entrance to Thule, the fact that Emma and Julian were actually able to enter Thule was something of a very, very special kind of situation. It wasn't something that necessarily could have happened all the time. So I don't necessarily think that like all alternate realities that exist out there are accessible to us. So I suppose this couldn't have created a plot hole in any earlier books. But there was kind of a part of me that was like, this is a bit too easy. Like, this is a bit of an easy way out. Getting the Mortal Sword, getting Livy back, it felt almost too easy. I'm very, very intrigued and interested in the sort of general philosophical and also scientific debate about whether alternate realities or parallel universes actually exist. But I think for me personally, in terms of like literature and fiction, it just never really makes much sense to me because I'm so undecided about how to view the characters from parallel universes. Like, are they actually the same characters? Do they have the same qualities? Like, do they have the same like soul or whatever you want to call it? And again, while I think that Thule and the sort of all of the action that went down there was done very, very well and written excellently by Cassandra Clare, there are some questions that this plot point sort of raises, which I don't necessarily think was fully answered in this book. The Unseelie King basically says that he was able to open up this portal to Thule, but he doesn't really explain how Thule came to be. Is it the only parallel universe or alternate reality? Are there other alternate realities, or was Thule like specifically created by Sebastian / the Unseelie King to sort of function side by side with like the normal world? Is Thule an exception rather than the rule, or are there millions and billions and trillions of other parallel universes out there with other shadow hunters and other wars that went down? And these are just the kind of questions that I don't feel like were answered properly in this book. And so that is something that just left me like a tiny bit disappointed, but that's fine. And that's probably just me. Another thing that I really loved about Queen of Air and Darkness was the love triangle, or love not triangle, between Christina, Mark, and Kieran. I have personally never seen a polyamorous relationship unfold or develop in any book really, so it was actually the first time that I was ever exposed to that. But it was just very, very interesting to see their relationship unfold. They were all very, very sweet. I think the thing that really just stuck out to me was how there was no jealousy in their relationship. It was just pure love, pure commitment, pure trust, and that is something that I can really, really support. Despite being a huge romantic and a huge monogamist, I suppose, if you want to say, I found Mark, Kieran, and Christina's relationship to really, really be executed perfectly, and I definitely hope that we get to see more of them in the Wicked Powers and see how their life sort of has developed, or their relationship has sort of evolved after Kieran has become the new Unseelie King, and they have their little cottage now where they can go and like hide out. So cute. Speaking of relationships, I was just super, super happy that Julian and Emma were able to gain their happy ending together in this book. There were a lot of hints, both from Cassandra Clare and also other fans, that this book series and the ending of this book series was going to completely rip us apart. It definitely did, in terms of like the Shadowhunter world and the political aspects. However, in terms of Mark and Julian, I was just really, really happy that they were able to get their happy end together. I also was really, really interested in how the Parabatai curse sort of evolved. I think for for me personally, it would have been nice to see this curse sort of unfold a bit earlier on in the book. However, I do understand that in terms of like what happened in the plot, Julian, you know, getting his emotions switched off, it wasn't feasible, so I do understand why it only happened later on in the book. But I just feel like this tension that we felt in books 1 and 2 when we found out that there was a parabatai curse just kind of felt like it felt like a tiny bit flat in the first half of this book. But I do believe that it was done really, really beautifully. At the end of this book, I was really shocked to find out, you know, the sort of truth about like the first Nephilim and how they were evil giants. I still don't 100% understand how it completely ties into the parabatai bond, especially in terms of like this idea of like love and these 3 types of love that exist and how that sort of ties into like being a shadow hunter and being a parabatai, and also like what this has to do with it being like a created rune and not a rune that was given from the actual angel. But I do believe it was done very, very, very perfectly. It was really terrifying to see Emma and Julian being giants, and like I genuinely did think that they were going to die. I didn't think that they were going to make it. I definitely didn't think that they were both going to make it at that point in the book, so I'm just super happy that they both made it out of there alive, and that their parabatai rune burned off, and that they were able to have the happily ever after that they both deserve. Now, speaking of a happily ever after, the thing that shocked me so much, and I know that this is probably maybe not the thing that shocked like you guys if you guys read this book, but it was definitely what happened at the Clave meeting when the Dearborns and the other cohort members like were going to be punished for their crimes, were going to be even like sentenced to death, and then they weren't sentenced to death, and then they had that sort of like suicide threat, and then basically all of the good Clave members leaving Alicante for indefinitely, basically giving the cohort full power over Alicante and all of these sort of Shadowhunter things. Like that just fucking blew my mind. Like I thought the cohort was going to be done for in this book. I thought the cohort was just going to be like this thing that like would have resolved itself by this book, and I was just so truly, I don't think that I was ever so shocked by a political thing happening in a fictional book series than when the entire Shadowhunter world was basically flipped on its face, and I was speechless, and I don't even know how this is going to play out in the Wicked Powers. I mean, Cassie has also said that in the actual Wicked Powers, the Shadowhunter world is also not going to be the same. So if this is like already so different from the normal Shadowhunter world, like what is going to happen in the Wicked Powers? I want to move on and talk about something positive. So I'm going to be talking about Alec and Magnus finally getting married. Oh my gosh. I didn't think that it was gonna happen, or I thought it might happen, but like later on. So I was so happy when Alec was finally consul, or not finally consul, but he was consul, and then he was able to like basically on the spot change the law about downworlders marrying Shadowhunters, and then they got to have their super romantic wedding ceremony. I found that to be just absolutely adorable. So that was something that was just a happy part of a book. It was so light, it was so heartwarming, and it was just so nice to see that happening amidst all this chaos and stormage and craziness. And the very, very last thing that I want to touch up on is the fact that Tess is pregnant, which I already knew from the Shadow Market novellas, but it was still so cute to see like her actually telling other people. And also I was very, very intrigued about Kit going with her. I was obviously super heartbroken to see Kit and Ty being sort of like broken up because Kit decides to leave Ty as he believes that this would be better for Ty. So I am really interested to see how that will develop. However, there is a part of me that just thinks that Kit, Tess, and Jem and the little baby are going to be so cute together, and I definitely am really excited to see that in the Wicked Powers. So that was it for my review. I would be really interested in hearing whether you guys have read Queen of Air and Darkness, whether you guys agree with the aspects of this book that have shocked me the most. Are you guys also just as shocked as me about this whole Clave situation and Alicante and shutting the borders and all that stuff? Or was there something else that, you know, has actually shocked you a lot more than that? I would be really interested in hearing your thoughts, so just drop them down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I bring videos out every Wednesday. I hope that you guys are having a great day, night, morning, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye!